I submitted in January to the California legislature a projected budget into the new fiscal year. The projected budget, building on last year's efforts, also projected a surplus, roughly a $6 billion surplus we projected. This is 90 days ago, not a year ago. Just 90 days ago, we introduced a budget projecting another $6 billion budget surplus. We were referencing a few weeks later that we had hit a milestone, 120 consecutive months of net job growth. We had the lowest unemployment in modern recorded history in the state of California. People were feeling a great sense of optimism about our fate and future. We even started to see, stubborn though it was, some real progress in addressing the issue that defines so much of California's struggle, and that's the issue of disparities, this bifurcated hybrid reality that many live in, and those that were still struggling to recover from the 2008-2009 Great Recession. We were starting to close some of those gaps and start to address the issue of those disparities and poverty, income and wealth inequality, and the like. That was 90 days ago. Here we are today. Our Department of Finance put out a memo in anticipation of the release of our May revise and our budget. And you may have seen, we're projecting tens of billions of dollars of shortfalls, all specifically related to COVID-19, all specifically related to this pandemic. In so many ways, it's not surprising. We've been foreshadowing this for many, many weeks. And of course, for many, many months, this has been foreshadowed as this is a global pandemic. And there's not an economy around the world that has substantively, at least, been immune, some a little less so, from the collateral consequences of this pandemic as it relates to their economy. The United States, every state in this nation, will be struggling with unprecedented shortfalls that happened in such a very short period of time. And California is no different. What is different in the state of California is we're the world's fifth largest economy. Our budget's a magnitude, it's larger than over 20 states combined in terms of its population. And so it gives you a sense of the scope and scale of this state. So when you see those numbers, they should get your attention, and understandably so. But what may not get as much attention, and I think deserves your attention equally, is we're better positioned to deal with this shortfall than we have shortfalls of the past. Let me be more specific. California went through a very challenging time in 2003. The magnitude of that deficit was actually greater in percentage terms than the deficit we face. In 2009, that was a jaw-dropping challenge for that administration and that legislature. They were trying to balance roughly a $60 billion budget shortfall. It may have been larger in percentage terms than the state's current shortfall, but they were not as well positioned because of the fiscal management preceding that to weather that deficit. And I think this is a long way of saying this. We'll get through this. This will be challenging. We'll get through it by working together in a collaborative spirit of shared responsibility. I've already had the privilege of meeting with the leadership of the Assembly and the Senate and the budget chairs and their respective colleagues to give them a sense of the scope and magnitude. And I have great expectation and great confidence that we'll do everything in our power to protect the most vulnerable Californians at this incredible moment in time. But I will say this, my optimism is conditioned on this: more federal support. End of the day, with this happening in such a short period of time, we're seeing economic numbers, the unemployment numbers. Now 4.3 million people just since March 12th have filed for unemployment insurance. Almost $12 billion, $11.9 billion of unemployment claims have been processed. Checks have been cut just since March 15th. Again, March 15th, not January 15th. Gives you a sense of the magnitude. Those unemployment numbers will translate into economic numbers of unemployment that are more acute than anything we have seen in modern times. The budget however, because of the acuity of this crisis, we believe is manageable, again, if the federal government helps support states like ours. It is absolutely incumbent upon our federal partners to recognize, as many do, and I can assure you one that certainly does is Speaker Nancy Pelosi, but as many do, the magnitude of this moment and how it's directly related to COVID-19, not mismanagement. Again, $21.4 billion budget surplus we were able to balance last year. $6 billion projected surplus just 90 days ago in this state, paying down long-term pension obligations, balancing budgets with record reserves, seeing bond rating agencies look at those facts and adjudicate them independently, record low unemployment, real economic growth, reinforcing our position as the world's 5th largest economy. But because of this pandemic, because of what it has done, these revenue shortfalls are bigger than even the state of California. We need the federal government to recognize this. Because at the end of the day, it's not about our state, it's about our firefighters, it's about our nurses, it's about our teachers, it's about frontline employees that we call heroes every single day for good reason. They are the real victims at this moment of these potential shortfalls. And we have to do everything in our power to protect them and to protect the most vulnerable Californians that need the supports now more than ever because their personal finances are even more devastating than the state's fiscal condition. We have to recognize that this moment requires an historic effort of partnership, not just between a governor and a legislature, but between the states and our federal government. We are very grateful for the support we have already received, and has been bipartisan, and we are very grateful to the leadership of both parties for their support and the President of the United States for his concurrence in terms of those commitments. The CARES Act, the last CARES Act, has been profoundly beneficial to the state of California. But sadly, the enormity of this moment requires even more support. And again, not just for states, but for cities and counties that are truly on the front lines of addressing this pandemic. And I'll tell you, when I say the front lines, they are the ones that hire your local police officers and firefighters. These counties and the health departments hiring nurses and doctors, these heroes, the skilled nursing facilities, and the incredible work those men and women are doing in our assisted living facilities to take care of our seniors and our most vulnerable. So many of them county employees, not just state employees. In fact, the state of California is one of the most efficient per capita number of employees of any state in the country. But the reality is this impacts cities and counties, particularly counties, in profound and significant ways. So again, this is not a cry by any stretch. We're proud of this state and our capacity to meet the moment and to be resilient. And we're really proud of the work that's been done. Former Governor Brown, former legislators, to really get California's fiscal health back in shape. But this is bigger than all of us, and we really need the federal government to do more and to help us through this moment. We'll do everything we are responsible for doing and more. We punch above our weight in this state, and we'll come back stronger, more vibrant, more resilient than ever, because for one thing we all know is a lot more than we did know before this crisis. We know our limitations, we know our capacity, we're breaking through many of the limitations, breaking through our previous belief systems of capacity. We're reimagining the future in real time because we have to invent it in real time to just address the magnitude of this crisis. Just ask our teachers that are doing distance learning and able to do it in heroic ways almost overnight. Just ask so many of our employers and entrepreneurs that have even broken through in additional innovations in terms of the telework that they're doing and the other capacity to organize differently their teams of employees, essential and non-essential, the creativity of folks in government that are meeting this moment in historic ways to protect you and to keep you safe and healthy, not only in our hospital system, but in alternative care sites all across our state and our nation. So I'm not being Pollyannish. We'll get through this, but I am being sober about the magnitude of the reality that we cannot do it alone. And so we continue to enjoy just extraordinary relationships with our elected officials, our federal representatives, again, Democrats and Republicans here in the state. We'll need everybody moving together in this. This is, again, not a red state issue, not a blue state issue. It's tiring saying that. It's not a red county issue, a blue county issue. That's tiring. It's about human beings that need government at a time of great need and great stress, more than they ever have in our lifetimes. And we are capable of meeting that moment together. And so that's the spirit we're going to bring in to the next 5 or so weeks as we try to work through our balanced budget. One thing we don't have as a nation state is that printing press. That's one thing that distinguishes our federal government from state governments. But we do have an entrepreneurial mindset, and we do believe in accountability. We're not victims of fate. We have agency. We'll do our best, but we are certainly dealing with a crisis that is global in its scope and impact, and clearly California is not immune from those impacts.